Speaking of the NFL, Monday night was about as egregious as we've seen in terms of refereeing for multiple years. Um, Tony Correnti threw a taunting penalty at Cassius Marsh after he sacked Ben Roethlisberger and looked at the Pittsburgh sideline. Tony Correnti threw this flag from behind Marsh, and Marsh never crossed the closest hash mark to the Pittsburgh sideline. He said that the posture, he saw the player posturing and thought it was taunting. Has it gone too far?
Yeah, there's a really good rant by Ryan Clark that talks about this, and I'll echo and paraphrase to a degree. But my problem with referees has always been referees like to be the show. They like to be the face. They like to have people recognize them for some way, shape, or form. We've had this problem well before Ed Hockley and his massive arms were, flexing on people in games and throwing flags with the short sleeves. Like, we've had this problem for God knows how long. It's even more apparent now, I think, with social media, but whenever there is subjectivity in sports, it always leads to controversy and frustration and all types of different issues. Referees sometimes will see, imagine you are a 12-year-old kid and your dream is to get to the NFL, the NBA, whatever. We'll use the NFL for this argument. You're a 12-year-old kid, you want to get to the NFL. You are working significantly harder than everyone else in your area. Maybe you have God-given talent, but you still have to work significantly hard. You get into college, you prove people wrong, you dominate, you get yourself drafted, you get into the NFL. You've now beaten the odds. You are of the 0.01% of people that have been able to do something ever. You're in the NFL, you get an opportunity to sack someone, you hit a quarterback, which again is another fraction of a percent of people to be able to do something at your position. You do that in a close game and it has meaningful impact. And because you happen to just stand in a certain way, because your hips are slightly postured forward, or you just have your hands on your hip, or you celebrate, God forbid you celebrate because you did something that requires so much athletic talent and so many things to line up in the universe for you to be able to do. Someone says, no, we don't like that. Let people have fun. The same problem that baseball had where people weren't able to do bat flips or do all these different things, unwritten rules and different things populating within that whole sphere. Let people who are great at what they do celebrate within reason. If you're getting in someone's face and pushing them or whatever, or causing someone severe harm, yes, that is an issue. Flag them, penalize them, fine them if you have to. But let people dance. If you don't want to be sacked, you should have better protection. Your quarterback should move better. You should call different plays and structure your, counter blitzes significantly better. Stop penalizing people for being great at what they do and having some ounce of human emotion when they do that task.
Do you think taking the NFL referees off TV and taking their microphone away, and my suggestion to this was give them a communicator to the commentary team, or so the commentary team can hear it, and so that way, like, the board op at the stadium can hear it, so the explanation goes up of what the penalty is, who it is in the player, and then also so the commentators know what the call is, and just take the referees completely off the broadcast. Think that works?
I'm here for it, but I also think it's 2021. Why are we leaning heavily on people in an analog way when we have so many digital technologies to aid them? Referees' jobs are difficult, don't get me wrong, but we should be helping them with all these different camera mechanics and things that we have, and we have the ability to track how fast a player is running or degrees of separation between a corner and a wide receiver. Use some of this technology to help out the referees. Referees should be used for contextual things, right? Human things that we can't necessarily get from a machine or from devices reading specific information, but allow them to help with that information. And to your point, don't let them be a part of the broadcast, but help them make better calls, make better decisions, not have to 50-50 guess things, or when they're doing really bad things. I think referees across all sports should have to answer media questions. Like, if we're not letting, I don't want them to be in the broadcast, but let them answer media questions. Because if you make a really bad call, if you're a player and you make a really bad play or a dumb play, or you try your hardest and it still doesn't work that well, you have to then go in front of the media and answer those questions. If a referee is not doing their job to the highest ability, and if players are being held to that same standard, referees should have to answer the media as well.
Cassius Marsh had to answer. He had to answer questions about the referee, and now he has to keep his tail between his legs, because if he says anything about the referees, he's going to get fined. I guarantee you, if Cassius Marsh put his hip out and hit the referee as he went, he would be fined and or suspended and probably ejected from the game for contact with the referee.
Yeah.
And to see Tony Correnti do that is just unbelievably awful. to watch. And the fact that it was caught on camera is even worse. Um, Real quick, we're talking about refereeing, so I have to bring up at the NBA. Dame Lillard came out and stated he doesn't believe that the refereeing, the new calling new fouls for non-basketball moves and things like that, he believes it's hurting the game overall. And we've seen players like James Harden struggle with the new foul system. Doesn't seem to be hurting Steph Curry at all. But do you believe that the new wave of refereeing in the NBA is the right way, or do you think they're going a little too heavy handed?
There are there's some things with the new ways the referees are doing it that I'm okay with, right? I'll call it the Kobe rule, where the pump fake jumping into players, like that
Yeah,
needed to be gone a decade ago, and they finally got rid of that. So like that's great. But I think for some guards, you're seeing it really impact them. Guards that like to drive more than anything else are being impacted because they're not getting the benefit of the doubt on some of these calls. Some of the bumps big men are allowed to sort of go. The way the rule is essentially structured typically is that if an opposing player is going up to try to lay up the ball, a big or whoever's contesting them can jump straight up with their hands up. As long as they don't lean forward, swat forward, make momentum forward, they're fine. It's not technically a foul call. We hadn't had that as a rule for actually, it wasn't actually being enforced that way for forever, right? When these kids were in high school, college, and then in the NBA, it wasn't necessarily happening. Dame is incredible. Dame, when I look at the law of averages, the same way I look at James Harden and the law of averages, I think he's going to be fine. I do think there needs to be some adjustment. I think what they're not doing is giving context to a small, like a 6'3", 200-pound guard jumping up against, 250-pound, 6'10" big, right? There's something
yeah.
that needs to be accounted for there, I think, within the rules. But overall, like I like that the game is allowing them to be a little bit more physical, but I don't think it's really where it needs to be fine tuned. I think a little bit more from where it's at now.
I agree. The one place that I don't like it is driving to the hoop. I feel like driving to the hoop, almost as you stated, when a guard's going up against a big, I think that they're allowing a little too much physicality, and I don't want to see James Harden flailing his limbs up in the air and them to get a call out of that. But I would love to see a few more calls. Celebrate the guy that beats his guy off the ball. Don't punish him for getting into a situation where he's getting hacked just because you're trying to prove a point. Non-basketball moves should still be called the way they're being called. People flopping around should absolutely matter of fact, they should call fouls on the people flopping more. But that being said, when a guy makes a successful drive and is trying to get to the hoop, you know, you know, reward him for doing that. Don't punish him just because the guy stood up straight in his way, that kind of way.
Yeah, to me, part of this feels like the NBA is trying to find a way to keep the bigs from becoming as extinct. The bigs that aren't necessarily incredibly offensively gifted, they're trying to keep those guys that are paint protectors around a little bit more relevant.
Right.
But again, fine tuning for that rule 100% needs to happen, just like they need to fine tune the basketball a little bit more.